And welcome back to Survivor 42 and 42. Just finished Survivor Philippines. The very first thing I have in my notes that I read, when I start these, I always start my notes from the very beginning. And the very first thing I have written down is, thank God Michael Skupin didn't win this season. Because if he did,
God,
like this season is very much looked at as like the high point of the Dark Ages. I feel like if he wins, in retrospect, it probably lowers it in a lot of people's eyes, even though it is a great season. So we're going to talk everything. We're just going to put this out there. I'm not going to refer to him as redacted. That's save that for the internet. I am going to refer to him by his name. We are joined once again by Gherman, and for the first time by Tweedy. Tweedy, we'll start with you.
Okay.
Initial thoughts on the season when you first watched, as compared to your most recent rewatch. We won't talk too much about the returnees yet, but just overall, what were your thoughts on the season, the times that you've watched it?
Oh, God. So, I mean, when I first watched this season, I suppose, I must have been, I was a sophomore in high school. I had to do the mental math to calculate that out when this aired live. And I remember liking it. I remember being like, oh, finally, something with like entertaining people. Great, especially after the 4 that came before it. And there's actually some suspense. It's not a pagong. There is some suspense about what's going to happen. I will say this time, rewatching it the subsequent times, including over this weekend in preparation for this. I did I still enjoyed it. I still I noticed this was more of a season where there isn't usually suspense about what's going to happen, or it's not one of the, except for the Jeff Kent one, there's none of the tribals are like these big explosive things, but it's more just how it happens is for the most part pretty cool and interesting, and you actually feel like and are in some way bonded to a lot of these people, even if you are in a lot of cases watching them sabotage themselves.
Yeah, and that is the thing with this season is the gameplay is actually very good, but almost every good to great player that is on the season has one or more questionable moves where you're like, all right, I was with you until you told Lisa that you might not want a Final 3 deal. Or, I was with you until this. Or I was with you until you said, I'm cagey on if I want Lisa in my alliance, if you're Abby. And it's like, all right, but Lisa is very loyal, even though she doesn't want to be. So, Gherman, when we talk about the Philippines, we start the season off with 3 returnee players, that were, all medevac at one point or another. I feel like of those 3, at the time of me rewatching this, 2 of them I cared about. Like I wasn't really high on a Russell Swann return, but cool, we have him, whatever. But at the time, I was really excited to see Skupin play again because I've been watching since Borneo. But so I saw Skupin fall in the fire. And Penner is a great narrator. So do you think they got it right with these 3 medevac returnees, or is there someone that you would replace with someone else? Because in my notes I have, it's wild that they don't have any female medevacs return this season, but also going through my head, it's like, but who?
Yeah, it's a big but who. If you take out Russell Swann, right? The other person that was in contention for this season, and Jeff has confirmed this and they have confirmed this, was Colton. And honestly, I don't think the Survivor community was ready for 2 seasons of Colton in a row. So yes, I'm going to take Russell Swann. Who else are you going to pick? The fucking guy from Fiji? No.
Papa Smurf?
Papa Smurf or the third boot from Token Sheens. Like, come on. Like, I think that Russell Swann had the most dramatic medevac in the show's history up to this point. Caleb's is more later down the road. But Russell Swann is there. So when they show at the beginning, this is what could happen to you, when they show Russell Swann going back, a big part of having him here was for that moment. So in my opinion, yeah, it was the right 3.
Yeah. I didn't know that part about Colton, and I am now obviously glad that it was Russell Swann. But
yes.
I don't know. The Russell, he wasn't the most appealing person in his own season, and that's because of other things. But even in this season, it's like he doesn't understand the game. I feel like he really just doesn't grasp what's going on. And it's actually surprising that he makes the final 3 and Matt Singh. Which, fun fact for everyone that listens to this, the original name of the show Survivor Hot Takes was going to be called Matt Singh Strong, as like a play on Navidi Strong and all that. But that has nothing to do with anything. I feel like if they were looking to do a twist this season, this was, based off of what we've gotten in the last 4 seasons, I feel like this was a decent twist of having returnee players that are not, big names like Rob, Russell, Ozzy, Coach. You just have players that have played before, but, deserve a second
chance. They didn't get their full shot.
Was outside of the game. And I do feel like 2 of them did well. Really, one of them, but Scoopin did sit at the end, so I'll give him credit, where credit's due. I do feel like Penner played his best game, period, in this season. And he is the narrator of the season. He's everything. And I feel like Penner took the biggest advantage of his second chance. I do feel like Scoopin was, I know it was alluded to at Final Tribal that one person was the passenger. And I'm assuming it was Scoopin because anyone that watched Lisa this season knows that she really wasn't a passenger. Yeah, a lot of the stuff she did didn't work, but she was trying. And yeah, she was trying. And Denise absolutely wasn't a passenger. She couldn't be a passenger. So going off of just the OG tribes and seeing how they're performing early on before Matt Singh blows up. Gherman, we'll go back to you for a second. Did you think going into that final episode where Matt Singh finally just dissolves, did you think there is a chance that these 2 could pull it out? Or do you think at some point or another they were going to get cut?
For Malcolm and Denise, I honestly did have hope for them from the start, because you have to take a look at the Yellow Tribe first, and you notice they're a disaster. They're waiting to implode, and hardly anybody on that Yellow Tribe is going to be able to resolve from that sinking ship with glorious notes. People already hate Scoopin. Lisa's crying all the time. RC's gotten into feuds. Pete causes drama for no reason. I love Pete.
Don't worry, we'll get to Pete.
I mean, yeah.
Avi Maria is a hot mess. Artist just hates people, so like, is the person on the Yellow Tribe going to win? Not really. Calabar, I think, is the more recruity tribe of them, where actually Matt Singh does have some more people that watch the show. And the Yellow Tribe did have more people that watch the show, but the Red Tribe has Katie, Carter, like, they don't know what's going on. And it's like, are they going to let Jeff Kent get to the end? Are they going to let... So I felt like based on the selection of people who were there, yeah, I did have some confidence in Malcolm and Denise.
Okay, and so in Tweedy, going off of that, the tribes that they eventually end up on with Malcolm ending up on Tandang and Denise ending up on Calabar, did you think at that moment that there was any way they would get back together? I know they said they were going to get back together, but do you think that they were going to stay new tribe strong, or did you feel like they had that big of a bond, basically bonding through trauma and Matt Singh, that they were always inevitably going to work together long term?
I felt like there was certainly setup for them to come back together, and that is ultimately what happened. I was like, what do was it theoretically possible that either of those tribes could have voted them out just because? I mean, sure, but I mean, again, Tandang, was just like, they were a complete mess. I mean, Calabao was also very split, and then Calabao was a very under-edited tribe. It was, as far as the edit was concerned, it seemed like there were two people on that tribe, which were Penner and Jeff Kent.
Okay.
They did show that there was like a weird gender split there also, and so like when Denise went over there, the women were maybe going to try to get Denise before Dana was medevaced. But then either way, Denise is going to be safe just because Denise is like a sane human being. That was kind of a theme of this. I felt like a theme of watching them both on Matt Sing and just the season as a whole is like they made it the farthest just because straight up they were the sanest people there.
Yes. And it's funny that you say that because I was comparing Tandang to Kasaya from Panama. I was like, this is what was my exact words? I said Tandang is somehow a more tame version of Kasaya, which is crazy because everyone on Tandang has these little things about them that are just like, who casted you? Who are you? With the exception of probably Artis, who is a curmudgeon, but like he's a curmudgeon that when he gets voted out, he's not bitter about it. He's like, yeah, like it's a good move, blah, blah, blah. He takes it on the nose. But everyone else is just a bunch of, like I referred to the One World cast, a bunch of cartoon characters. You have RC trying to build this relationship with Avi Maria. And in my notes, I have, you brought it on yourself. Because I'm assuming outside of the 43-minute episodes that we are getting, that Abby had started to show signs that, she might not be playing with a full deck. Long before she went crazy on RC, but RC wants to build this bond with Abby. They find the clue together, and that's when Pete, who I hated the first time I watched this, and now this season was probably like, oh, he's a fun villain. I get it. Pete starts to shit stir. He starts building relationships with Lisa to have another alliance with Lisa. He hides the clue on RC's bag, and Abby, being Abby, freaks out. But the Tandang tribe, I'm so glad that even though they weren't going to tribal, period, they still got enough screen time that we knew all of them going into the merge, as compared to Calabao, where we, like you said, we only knew Jeff Kent and Penner, and we knew that Carter had accidentally almost told Penner that he was going.
I mean, even if you take some recent seasons like the Blue Tribe on 42, you have tribes that even go to tribal council, show up at the merge, and you're like, well, I don't know what their dynamics are by now. And that's sad. The Yellow Tribe here, you knew everything that was going on by the time they made merge, and that made it really exciting to see how is this going to play out. So there's ways to edit in a 3-tribe season to have a tribe show their dynamics. This season proved it. They didn't do it with the Red Tribe, but they did it with the Yellow Tribe, even when they didn't go to tribal council. And I love that.
And do you feel like, especially watching this time, do you feel like because Denise inevitably ends up on this tribe, that they give us all of their backstory because they know that she's going to win in the end, so that when she joins them, we're not like, oh, I wonder what the dynamics are going to be now that Denise is here. It's like we already know the dynamics now that Denise is here, and we can kind of go from there. Either one of you can attest to that or not, but that's just kind of a generic question before we move on. Is it the edit? Do we blame the edit?
I think we can blame the edit for the Red Tribe. I think that, Jeff Kent was a celebrity. They needed to give him his flowers. Penner is a returning player who dominates in his confessionals, so they gave him his flowers. Carter is a zombie. Katie was a recruit. Dawson only wanted to be there to kiss Jeff Probst, and Dana got medevaced.
Oh, yeah, no, she didn't get medevaced. It counts as a quit.
Technically, yes. I mean, I agree with, yes, on paper, I understand why they didn't, in terms of the editing, they kind of phoned it in with Calabao in a couple ways, I feel like. That said, I mean, in terms of setting, like, they're not that important. I mean, they're honestly just not as important to the long-term outcomes of the season. I am kind of curious, I will say, what happens if Dana doesn't leave the game. If Dana doesn't leave the game, and then Denise gets there, I mean, it's possible it still plays out the same, probably with just like maybe one of the other Calabao women making merge. But my gut tells me that's actually probably the most likely outcome. But
we've seen Denise play in Winners at War, and she did a line with Red.
Katie was a recruit, and then but like she seemed to she did seem to like get at least a basic level of the game. Like knew
better than
where I stood.
Almost all the Jamokes from Nicaragua, Redemption Island, South Pacific in one world.
I mean,
Katie.
Can we talk about Jeff Probst for a second this season and his like hatred of Katie and Angie?
Yes.
Like Jeff Probst during these challenges and at Tribal Council, like, Angie, you want cookies? Katie failing for the tribe. Like Jeff Probst is going crazy on the, and it's like, calm down. What's going on with you?
Abby a few times too, and I didn't remember the last meeting challenge she plays in, where he's just like heckling her from afar. She is taking her sweet ass time, so like warranted. But he sounded like a coach almost, like, what the hell are you doing? Blah, blah, blah. It's like she's not even trying. Yeah. And I think Jeff, I feel like Jeff was having PTSD flashbacks to the previous 4 seasons. And it was just kind of like, please, y'all, please just give me one good one. Please give me one good one. And I think that we did. Before we move to the merge, there are a couple of pre-merge things that I want to touch on. Yeah, well, that's number 2. Number 1 is the Penner Jeff Kent thing, where Jeff Kent wants all the returnees gone, but he feels like his best chance once the merge hits before the merge hits is to work with Penner. It's wild that I feel like Penner, being from New York, which is where he's from, right? I'm not making this up.
Think so.
Wouldn't know who Jeff Kent was, because I just assumed everyone in New York knows all baseball players. And he knew who Lisa Welchel was. So, but I really like that dynamic, and that's the only dynamic that we were really shown with Calabao. So of course I have to care about it. The other thing, obviously, is Matt Singh, which optics wise, Matt Singh looks like they could potentially dominate because they've got 4 really big people just looking at him. And, we don't know what type of strategy these people are playing, but just optics-wise, they've got some big people, and I'm putting Denise in there because she is ripped this season, as we see. So where do you think Matt Singh went wrong? Do you think they should have kept Zane? Like, do you think, honestly, like, and I'm being serious, because Zane did seem, his rationale for what he did when they got back, it made sense. I think he leaned into it too heavily, but it wasn't the craziest thing based off what he was saying in his confessionals. Y'all can have at it with the Zane thing, because I know, the group chat was Zane fanboys or whatever it was, so have at it.
So I love this premiere. This is one of my favorite premieres in Survivor history because it's the Zane show. Zane comes out, he makes an alliance with everybody, and he repeats the same thing. You're in my corner now. You're in my corner now. And he goes to Denise, he goes to Angie, he goes to Roxy, does the same line. And then he goes to Malcolm and Russell. And he's like, yeah, I already made alliances with them and you guys are last. And it's like, what? And he just quit smoking like the day before he got out there. Our Shane Powers 2.0, which was so entertaining with Shane. And then here, and he was not going to do well in these coming challenges. So yes, I feel like it was a wise move to get rid of him. But he comes out there, he fails at the challenge. And maybe this is a good move if you first talk with other people first. Like, hey, I'm going to say, I can't do it. I fucked up, but I'm doing this so Russell is complacent with his idol. But when you first go to the group and do that, and then you afterwards look at people with a crazy eye and say, I'm testing social boundaries, it doesn't fucking work, bro. You had galaxy brain shit in this.
Yeah. People will believe you the first time. I mean, again, with Zane, that's that's like, I feel like that sums it up very well. I mean, he was somebody who, I mean, everybody from at least what we were shown still really liked. I mean, It was like, there were all these other things where it's like, okay, we're not showing the stuff with like Roxy and Angie until the next episode. Everyone's kind of annoyed at Russell for acting
as Russell Swann refers to it.
Exactly.
Boob thing.
Yeah. Well, we didn't get it. I would assume that was like that probably was a thing at the time episode 1 was filming, but it only mattered in episode 2. Like there were, and then there was Russell being, and then like, so yeah, there were all these other problems that like, I don't think it necessarily matters when they get rid of Zayn. I think honestly, from what they were seeing, like on paper, sure, they have big people, but I mean, theoretically, you'd think Russell Swann's going to be good at challenges, and he's not.
But he's not.
So I don't think it really matters. But
I'm saying if you swap Russell Swann for Zayn, let's say they get rid of Russell Swann, which watching it this time, I don't think would have been the worst idea, because it's not like these other tribes were dominating because of pure physical strength or anything like that. They just have the right people at the right time, and honestly, like. The last challenge that they do, the episode that Russell goes and he's like, calls Probst God or whatever, Malcolm lands one more, and I think it's
win. Yeah,
and then they stay. So I don't know. I just feel like the way that Russell, especially with that first challenge, everyone complained about the spots that Russell put them in,
which were the wrong spots. Absolutely.
Yes.
So.
He felt he was still wearing the leadership necklace from Samoa, and
I mean, that he wasn't, which was funny. I mean, like it's entirely possible they win. I would guess they still they were close in some of these challenges, but I would guess they still tank.
Okay.
Maybe it's they're lose 3 instead of 4, but
as we hit the merge, and I do want to say this. Gherman, go ahead.
So the other Matt Singh thing I want to say is, one, Roxy is underrated as a character. She, like, with focusing on the headlights, like, Roxy is out there. We, like, talk about how crazy the Matt Singh characters are. When you focus on Zayn, we talk about Angie with the cookies. Everyone forgets that Roxy was out there speaking in tongues and all of this stuff in episode 2. And
was still like, all right, this is weird.
Yeah, Russell even was at that far. And I got to say this, there's 2 types of religion on Survivor, and versus what I like and what I don't like. I don't like South Pacific's coach's cult. I don't like this Michael Scoopin, Lisa, God is, in our game. We're going to backstab, but you know what? We're moral and ethical, even though we're not, you know what I mean? This hypocrisy. But where I did actually really love this story with God was Russell Swann. This heartbreak, this fucking tragedy story of Russell Swann constantly going, God, why did you put me here? How am I failing again? And every single time his outburst, when they lose the immunity where it's just the 3 of them left, and they came so close, and the editing and it goes into slow motion, that's honestly one of my favorite episodes in Survivor history. And Russell Swann goes on his outburst, and everyone else, like on the other 2 tribes, is like, there's a great Penner face there. Yeah, and
my favorite part of that episode is when Russell and Janice are talking. He's telling the story about being beat up as a kid and all that. And I was like, wow, this is very touching for a person I know is going home in about 10 minutes. I wish I could hear more of this.
Captivating.
Yes,
yeah.
Yes, he is.
I will say, I found in that episode, as a fellow very high-strung person, I did find some of what he said weirdly more relatable than I would have expected to. I will say, in terms of just Russell is somebody who expects himself to have done has built this opportunity to do well up in his mind, and does he get what Survivor really is or what it's about? No, but he wants everything so bad. And yeah, it is cool. He does talk about his relationship with God and whatnot in a very introspective way. One thing I did notice this time that I don't think I ever saw before was in the Roxy boot episode. There's this one, like they're talking about, Roxy is talking about, how like God and whatnot. Denise has this confessional about how about Roxy, where she's like, if I, Denise, am going to get to the end, it's not going to be God that gets me to the end. It's going to be me that gets me to the end. And in context of what happens later on, I was like, yeah, that says a lot.
Well, no,
and just after Coach and Boston Rob and Ozzy, these returning players that have these glowing and like so focused edits, Russell Swann's was incredibly human. I think he was the most fascinating of the returning players in the 20s. And the edit still like pokes a lot of fun at him, where it's like, I'm not going to be the leader. Being the leader is the most stupid thing you could possibly do. And a montage of being the leader, the idol is going to just be there and I'm walking past it. And then they like focus on exactly where it's going to be. I love where they put the idols in public places.
Yes, I did. I do too. They were very easy to find because everyone found them very fast. Huh?
I just think the first 4 episodes of Matt Sing are beauty, and why I love this season so much. From the Zane to Roxy to Angie to Russell Swann, it is a beautiful 4 episodes where you get to know every single person that goes, and it's a tragedy.
It's its own little season. It really is its own little season where it's like, all right, if you could put on Philippines for somebody and say, hey, did Lisa Whelchel win America's Favorite?
Yeah.
Wow. In my head it was Malcolm because of course it had to. But yeah, Lisa. I tweeted this out earlier. Lisa is like high key a MILF this season, but RC's still my crush on this season. We hit the merge. Segue. We hit the merge. And I guess this technically happens before the merge, but artists hate Scoopin' before the rest of America is what I have written down. Yes. Artists hate Scoopin' because of the trade that him and Penner make, which is funny because they both make the trade and they both have people in their tribe that think that they both got gypped. So just a funny little thing. But we hit the merge. It's going to be Tandang versus Calabao. Calabao's down in numbers. But we also have the Matt Sing strong thing going on, which I don't think that people really paid attention to, at least according to the edit. It didn't look like people really paid attention to. So Lisa finds the idol in Malcolm's stuff. Lisa's cutting these deals. Everyone, like, for me, yes, like you said earlier, Tweedy, the tribal councils weren't like, you weren't mind blown by a lot of stuff, but like the actual tribals this season, I found super compelling. Like, I actually stopped working or whatever I was doing during the actual tribals because I wanted to see what was being said because they were saying a lot. It's almost, I won't say it's they're everyone's being super honest or anything, but it's more like people are saying enough truth where everyone's getting paranoid, but not paranoid to the point where they play idols, except for when Penner plays it correctly. And when Abby doesn't, but I feel like at that point she was just being torn apart so much, according to her, that she had to do it. But this merge is one of my favorite merges just ever. From beginning to end, I think the only episode that I really was just like, okay, was the Carter boot. And even then, there's still this thing of it could be Abby, like they could actually get Abby out here, but. At that point, I thought I was pretty sure that Abby was going to at least make it to Final Four as like a GOAT, and I'll talk about that because I do think that Abby gets votes at the end. But the Carter boot's like, all right, whatever. But this merge, y'all, as people that watch a lot of Survivor, where do y'all? You don't have to necessarily give a number rank, but like, are you guys high on this merge cast specifically? Because I feel like everyone, with the exception of Carter and Artis, which sucks for Artis because Artis seemed like such a great character when he's giving confessionals. Do you feel like this was a great merge cast? Dawson just kissed Jeff Probst on the lips. Oh my God. I forgot about that. I forgot about that too. Please go.
Oh Lord.
Jesus.
Okay, so to answer your question, yes, I do. I do look at this cast very highly. There are, and I do, and this was a very this was the merge, post merge was still generally pretty compelling television. Like, I agree, it gets final 5 and final 6 episodes to me were pretty slow. I could only listen to the same monologues about game versus values versus Christianity so much. But I thought up to then I thought that the dynamics of I thought that the the downfall of the, not necessarily Abby herself, but the Abby Pete artist trio was was really satisfying. The first 2 episodes were chaotic and a lot of fun. The end, the Penner boot episode, even though we know we're told exactly what's happening, was still really strong. Yeah, very, very good season. Very, very good post merge. I'm a fan.
Gherman?
I will say, first off, I love the representation of Jewish people on the show, right? As a Jewish person, having Penner and RC out there, you rarely up till this point got 2 Jewish people on a season. A lot of other representation, has needed to be addressed in Survivor.
Time out.
Yeah.
RC's Jewish?
Yeah.
That makes so much more sense. And I'll explain why after we aren't recording anymore. Please go ahead.
But yeah, so, a lot of other representation needed to be addressed on this season. I'm happy it's happening now, but that's one thing from, my community that I always love to see on the show. And Penner is the guy that, I could see at any of my family reunions as the Jewish uncle. He represents so many people that I know of, older Jewish guys. And I love that. So having them there, I have mixed feelings on RC, especially at her Ponderosa episodes. And then Abby is fireworks. Abby is crazy. Pete's a gamer. Artist, I love him. His confessionals. Malcolm and Denise, obviously legends. Fuck Scoopin', fuck that guy. He ran a Ponzi scheme. He's a terrible person in every aspect of his life. Fuck him. Lisa is such a compelling character in how she's torn between her morals and her emotion. So yeah, it's a great cast. When Penner wins immunity, he exists apparently. I don't remember him being there.
He had 2 good one-liners. That's it, but he had 2 of them.
The manicure line? No, the pedicure line. No, it was a pedicure, and he looked at his fingers.
Yeah.
And when Penner wins immunity, and everyone was like, "Yeah, Penner's going." And Penner wins immunity. It's like, what do we do now? There's a lot of great stuff here.
Those 2, when Penner wins, when he's supposed to go, when Abby wins and she's supposed to go, compelling. And what I'll say is, with this season, I like the story arcs. I like the multiple stories that we have going on, and the consistent one of these 2 Matt Singh people that somehow are still here against all odds. But you have the RC versus Abby rivalry. You have this Jeff Kent wanting to get all the returnees off. You have this Penner trying to finally, reach the mountaintop and playing in his best game, in my opinion. You have this Lisa, I'm not trying to be sarcastic, but her coming to Jesus moment in the game where it's like, I can do this. It is a game, blah, blah, blah. You have all these compelling storylines that I feel like it really pays off. And, coming off of the last 4 seasons and going into the season that we have next, it is palate cleanser the right phrase? We'll go with it. As far as if people were starting to get turned off by the show, I feel like this would definitely bring people back because it's just a great season to watch. Abby. So I finally I said this a while ago. I finally got Abby in Second Chances. I understood her fandom and I understood her as a player character. Watching it this time, I reverted back to I don't like this person, but I know what happens in Cambodia that makes me. But do you think it's cultural? I know that Jeff says it's cultural, and and the way she does talk to a lot of people does come off very either passive aggressive or just outright aggressive. do y'all think that it was a cultural thing, or do you think that she was just actually being a bad within the realms of the game, being a bad person?
I think that there's a mix between the two. But you see the way that she talks when her mom is out there, and there's 1,000% more passion in her voice because that's her root. And I do feel like there is, when it's your second language, sometimes there is sometimes where you see Abby talking in a more monotone voice, having to pick through her words and it coming off badly. But when Abby is speaking, to her mom and getting to flow with what is the most natural to her, I think it does come off, in a different way to different people. So I think there is an element of it where it's cultural. And obviously there is another element of it where she is, not playing well, popping off on people. But I don't think it's all one or the other.
Yeah, I would definitely second that. I mean, I am not an expert on Brazilian culture. I cannot say like this is a norm, this isn't whatever. I don't think any of us are really qualified to speak to that. However, I mean, I do get this. Kind of more of my takeaway from watching Abby this season was like, okay, while she has certain moments of it, like a lot of the times, I don't even necessarily, it's like, okay, maybe she doesn't actually mean to be like malicious per se. It's just sort of like a lack of a filter thing. Like I remember there's this scene where she goes on this reward and is gloating about how great the reward was to everyone who didn't get to go on the reward afterwards. And then they call her out on it and she's like, I was being honest. Do you want me to lie about my feelings? And I mean, on Survivor, yes, Abby, yes, they absolutely do. I also had to be, and this watch was more mindful of the fact that, while the edit does refer explicitly to like a good versus evil dynamic, with the good people being, Lisa, Denise, Scoopin, apparently, Malcolm, like the people, like the people who end up winning out, and
everyone that's not Pete, Artist, and Pete, Artist, and Abby.
Exactly. Well, the those three people, and also I do I do have to wonder how much of the edit is being filtered through just like the perspectives of mainly like say like Lisa, honestly the older people in the group, and the fact that there were three older people who made the final three. There were, and like this very, and so like part of the, and so that factored into things as well as the Jesus thing sort of was like, it was sort of in the back of my mind, like, how much of this is fact? But yeah, a lot of this was, but I mean, a lot of it was just like, objectively speaking, Abby is just saying stuff that it's like hilarious to hear her say, because even though I know basically who this person is on this watch, I'm still like, what?
There are two things with that, because I've never thought about that, but now that makes, and I'm going to tell you why in a second. But one, my favorite part of Abby coming back from the reward and like talking is at the end of her spiel, Penner goes, "Yeah, the rewards are fun." Just like it ended, and then she keeps on going. But two, you talking about how it's edited. Every time I've watched this season, to me it's always come off like Abby's actually pissed off at Denise. Like she's annoyed with a lot of these other people for things that they've said or done or whatever. But like even going into Final Tribal, she is clearly very angry with this person. And I think, to go with off what you said, if you need to build a hero arc, you need to build the villain arc. And if you have Denise as your eventual winner, you need to give her Abby in that case. Totally. And so you cut out anything that, not to say that I don't think that Denise is out there just speaking wild about the woman, but everything that Denise is shown to have said about Abby on camera is not, it's not overly hurtful or mean, at least from my opinion.
And it is shown to be mostly correct.
Yeah. And so I'm assuming that, especially that one where, or the Pete vote out where Abby's crying, I'm assuming that Denise had to have said something in that moment to just totally piss off Abby the rest of the game.
Yeah.
I have thought that, Abby is interesting, obviously, right? But it is always interesting when you're the only person of your background amidst a bunch of other people that have their exact same background and a lack of diversity in that range. And I always feel like when we compare to Nayanka when I was on previously, where it's like, this is how they are as a person. I enjoy them as a TV character, but obviously we have questions about Nayanka as a person. Avi Maria, I think the worst thing that we can say about her is that she's bad at communicating. Totally fair. I think she's an amazing TV character. She brings the confessional, she brings the gold, she brings the drama. But at the end of the day, I never thought Abby was a bad person. I thought that she was
I agree.
awkward, that she was, having trouble getting along with these people. But I understood where she was coming from as a complete outcast and knowing that she didn't have a spot of winning. And what can I do for my social game now? I'm not going to cook. I relate to that on a, petty level. I think that Abby was a good person. Did she do a lot of things wrong? Absolutely. But I think that sometimes they dug into her on a personal level that I don't always think was called for, especially for people like Scoopin sheing on the high ground.
Historically, Avi Maria has been correct about Michael Scoopin and Joe Anglem. So she knows her stuff. She knows her stuff. And speaking of Abby knowing her stuff, I totally forgot that she makes up something with her advantage as far as having a fake idol. And whether people kept her around at 6 because of that, we can go back and forth on that. I really don't want to touch on that, but it's more of she had game awareness. She had game awareness there, and she had game awareness when she tells Scoopin at Final Four, "You're not going to win." Period. You're not going to win. And I feel like because we're constantly hearing Scoopin saying that he's not in control. He's not pulling an Alicia from One World, but you can tell that Scoopin thinks very highly of himself in this season. And Abby, who's being portrayed as this fool, is telling him, hey, this is not that's not happening. And I do feel like if she's sitting at the end with Scoopin and
Lisa,
I feel like Lisa and Abby would get the votes, the majority of the votes. But if you throw in maybe Carter, if you throw in Carter, Abby, and Scoopin, I feel like there is a strong case that Abby could win.
Yeah,
I would say. I feel like Carter would probably get a vote here or there, but Abby has the Tandang people minus RC wrapped up. So Artis and Pete. I feel like she probably doesn't have Denise. Or she wouldn't have Denise or anything. But I do feel like there are situations where Abby gets votes and doesn't come in dead last. I'll say it like that. Abby doesn't come in dead last.
The other thing I want to say about Abby is with the Ponderosas this season, RC gets voted off and spends every single Ponderosa blasting Abby. And then when Pete comes, RC berates Pete. RC berates Artis, right? And then Abby comes, right? She was voted off. It's always sad to be voted off. RC immediately starts by berating her. And you know what Abby does when she learns that Pete lied? Abby apologizes.
Mm-hmm.
RC never accepts the apology. RC says you're a disgusting person.
To this day.
Yeah.
Abby isn't talking about RC on social media because Abby, knew that she made mistakes in it. But RC, out of unprompted, will bash Avi Maria at any given moment. I'm sorry. RC is the villain in that situation, in my personal point of view. And that's me going against what I normally do, which is automatically side with the Jewish person. So,
LOL. I mean, I will say that, Abby does, yes, to go off of that, Abby does have some idea, while she's not good at executing on it, she has an idea of what's going on. A lot of the, even in the pre-merge, some of the things that, she confronts RC for, I'm worried, like, it's a reasonable worry that, like, okay, maybe RC is closer to Scoopin than she is to me. Like, that's a reasonable thought for a savvy game player to have.
Especially when RC was, I'm going to pull Scoopin into the alliance, which she already proved she had that Scoopin connection.
Yeah. Right. Let's say it, like, I mean, so, what, being wary about Lisa, or worrying that Lisa could flip, which, I mean, she does.
Yep.
Then, that's pretty reasonable. Is it effective to, like, tell people this directly to their faces all the time? No, but, like, yeah, that is a thing. And, like, I mean, that was more of like, so this time it was more of like it's like, it really is not out of, she's not like unaware.
No matter what, Avi's not a bad person.
This is just a disconnect.
I would say the biggest villain of the season, just in the realms of the game,
Pete.
The biggest villain of the season, I would feel like, are the Tandang 3. But I feel like Pete more than anyone else, because he's the one that eventually, like, leads to the downfall of the entire group. This, with all of his shenanigans that he does pull, it starts to get people to not trust each other, which is fine pre-merge, but at merge, you need everyone in line, and I feel like people start to lose trust at that point.
Would anyone be shocked if I told you that Pete is a crypto bro these days?
No.
Yeah, absolutely not.
I would not be surprised by that.
Yes.
So I have 4 things off of my list. One, yes or no, Penner should have taken the deal, even if he didn't believe it.
100%.
Yeah.
Okay.
No complaint.
And this is more of a, 2 is more of a statement. Poor Carter, the episode that he's like actually getting more things, more confessionals, more screen time, and he's making some compelling points of, y'all are telling me one thing and are doing the other. As far as, like, y'all want to keep the people that deserve to be here and get rid of. I felt for the kid at that moment. Malcolm, which we haven't talked much about. Malcolm is, for my money, the ultimate golden boy, because he's good at challenges. He has a strategic mind, and everyone likes it. Like, he's a social player as well. And I feel like Malcolm sitting next to Denise at the end would have been compared to Ozzy and Yule, in which it would just depend on what the jury respected more in that situation. But I do feel like Malcolm is probably the best golden boy that we've had on the show, as far as, being good at challenges, but also having, the mind to know that people actually have to like me, and I have to play strategically.
He also never came out afterwards as incredibly problematic like Spencer and Joe, so that's always good.
Spencer's considered a golden boy?
He had that fan favorite.
In a weird way.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. But yeah, Andrew, hard agree with that. I do think that, I mean, he is somebody who, I mean, everyone can tell, to I guess Malcolm's both credit and downfall, everyone can tell how smart he is. That is clear. That is clear throughout the season, and that was somewhere where, as as a kind of effeminate high school kid watching this show, I was I had seen a lot of these bro-y types. Like, I was not I was pretty annoyed by Ozzy, who he's compared a lot to. But then I see him and I'm like, okay, I can roll with him. He actually gets what's going on. He's a sane person. I like that he's willing to work with people who don't look exactly like him or from his social circle. It's like, sure, he gets with Angie, but also his main ally is Denise, somebody who on paper you might not necessarily expect on any given tribe. That is something so he was a character who, I mean, I really enjoyed. I think, yeah, obviously, and he did play really well, up until Final Four.
I mean, yeah, And so going off of Malcolm is one of 3 returnees from this season.
Abby, Denise.
Denise came back for Winners at War. Who was the other?
Denise.
And Abby, yeah.
Oh, yeah, Abby second, right.
So I think it's just Abby and Malcolm, right? Like, not including the winner. It's just Abby and Malcolm, right?
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Do you think that it should have just been them, or do you, like, not your own real
So
opinion,
let's just be
like,
clear.
people-
They threw the bone out to RC 2 times. In Blood versus Water, she was going to be on there, but her dad was pulled due to medical reasons.
Mhm.
And then they invited her on to be on Second Chances. However, she refused if Abby was going to be on the ballot.
Which she was.
She was, and made the cast. Do you think that there are other people that should have, or you would like to see back, but be realistic too? So, like, don't say, I don't know,
Zane Knight.
I don't know. I would actually put Zane Knight in the list of people that, like, you know what, I wouldn't hate it, but someone like maybe Carter.
So Survivor South Africa just did a season of pre-merge boots versus post-merge boots, and that's the spot where I'd bring Zane back.
Yeah, if there's an early boot, yeah, I would agree. If there's an early boot season, there would be some or a season with that team. There would be some considerations. Like, I'd consider Angie for that as well. You know, like, I don't know. Dana was somebody who I feel like had some potential, even though she was barely shown. So in terms of the post-merge people, I mean, there were a lot of that I'm like, I'm okay with, like, I am kind of okay with not seeing again. Like, I mean, like, I don't think we're getting Lisa back. Yeah, I don't think, like,
Jeff Kent isn't coming back.
Jeff Kent, I don't see. Pete would be a potentially interesting one. I would be fine with it if he were on, I don't know, like, I mean, hell, if he were on, like, exactly. I mean, he's not a game changer, but neither was anyone else in that.
Neither was half of that Brand Still cast. Yes,
I would have taken Pete over Caleb.
Yep.
No, but he changed the game because now they don't try to kill their players anymore. Open your third eye. It all makes sense. Denise is a winner. I really enjoy Denise as a winner. I enjoy her entire story arc. It helps that she has to go to every tribal council. But I do enjoy her as a winner. I would have enjoyed Lisa as a winner. In the moment, I would not have enjoyed Michael as a winner, and absolutely afterwards, no. But I wouldn't have complained about him winning either. But I thought it was a 2-horse race at final 3. I thought it was between Lisa and Denise. I think that Lisa did do a great job at Final Tribal. In moments where people were attacking her, I feel like she did put her foot down and defend herself very well, which I was happy to see.
Yeah. I think it's worth mentioning that Lisa was a big fan of the show. You know, she wasn't just a celebrity recruit. She was actually at finale parties for years before the season. You can see her at Thailand, Gabon. You know, you can see her at all these different finales.
We got a Thailand reference in.
Yeah.
Let's go.
I did it this time for you. She was there. You know, she was a fan from the very start, and she loved this show. Did she do well at it? Yeah, you know, but I would take that over Gary Hogaboom.
What? Gary Hawkins is amazing. Relax. All right, you could have used anybody else. Gary was amazing.
He was the first one to come to mind. Let's just say Scott Pollard.
Scott Pollard, who was a jerk.
Yeah.
Overall, I'm going to give the season a 4.25 out of 5. The highest.
That's the one I showed up for.
Any season in the Dark Ages. I don't see that happening with my next season, Survivor Season 26, Caramoan, fans versus favorites 2. I'm not excited. I've been excited to watch One World or whatever, just to make sure that I'm not crazy. And One World surprised me. I found things to like in Nicaragua, blah, blah, blah. But Caramoan, I might watch 4 episodes tonight just so I have to watch less of it tomorrow and potentially start Blood versus Water halfway through the day tomorrow because I'm not looking forward to that much. But thank you both so much for coming on. It was a fun time. It was a long time. I didn't feel like we were here.
Yeah.
Hold on, I'll cheers.
I talk.
I'll hide the label. Cheers.
Cheers.
And God, why did I do that? We will see y'all after Survivor Caramoan.
All right.